everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the Women in Tech panel. My name is Alina, and I'm so excited to have this incredible group of people. And I will start by introducing Katie Delgado, the VP of Engineering at Forbes.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Really happy that you're here today. It's very exciting to have all of these fantastic women up on the stage. Just to introduce myself, my name's Katie Delgado, as said. I'm VP of Engineering at Forbes, and I also do a column for women in tech specifically, and men, of course, anyone who's interested, but mainly for women. And that's on the Forbes site. It's called Hey Tech Lady. I just put out a new article today, so check me out if you have a minute and want some advice. But as far as the conference, a couple of rules, a couple of things to know before we get started. Well, first of all, this is our third ever JNUC WIT panel, so Women in Tech panel. So this is something that's becoming more and more prevalent and important, and we're glad that you're here to hear us. And then also, we're not going to be taking live questions. We're just going to be, having me moderate and ask the questions, and everyone listen. Then also, this is being recorded, you should know, so will be available for replay on September 29th. We're doing some themes today for the questions. It's going to be about recruitment, retention, and recognition. I also want to say thank you to our ASL interpreter. His name's Gray. Thank you, Gray. And with that, I'd like to introduce our panelists. Let's start with Lynn on the end.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Linh Lam, Chief Information Officer here at Jamf. Then I was telling a couple people, today is my 1-year anniversary with Jamf to the date, so I really like to play the new girl card, and I think that officially expired today, so I can't do that anymore. But yeah, so glad to be here.
Julie Cullivan. I am currently a board director, but my previous operating roles were in a variety of tech companies, both technical and non-technical. I started my career before I would ever want to mention the year, but it was a fun 30-plus years.
Hi, everyone. Anisha Vaswani. I'm the CIO at Toast, and happy to be here, a Jamf customer, and I think I have a couple of folks attending, so happy to be here.
Hey all, I'm Amy O'Connor. I serve as an internal communication manager at Jamf, and I also serve as the president of the Women at Jamf board, which is our employee resource group.
All right, thanks so much, everyone. With that, I'm just going to dive into some questions. We're going to start with the recruitment topic. So the first question I have, so we're going to aim this one at Anisha. In your experience, how have you seen companies find success recruiting women and diverse talent into technology roles?
Yeah, great question. I think two things come to mind. One is intentionality, right? You have to be intentional and thoughtful about recruiting and think about the whole experience. So in my world, for example, that starts with how you write a job description, right? And being very thoughtful about what you require versus what are desired skills, really honing in on what's necessary, thinking about the language you use when you're describing. There's a lot of data, as many of you know, I see a lot of nodding heads about how a job description is written really matters in terms of the pool of candidates you attract for it. So we pay attention to things like that. We pay attention to making sure our interview panels are diverse, right? So I actually got this feedback from one of the people that interviewed for my team. She joined my team as a technical architect, but when she was going through the interview, all the other architects that interviewed her were male. And she pointed that out to me and said, is that the makeup of your team? And I said, no, it's not at all the makeup of my team, and I'm sorry we came across that way. And so that's something we've deliberately introduced a change around. We do not have non-diverse panels anymore. We are very thoughtful about doing that. And so I think intentionality, thinking about what experience you're providing, thinking about what you really need to recruit for, I think that's important. Being intentional about where you recruit. So I think, very passionate about finding non-traditional sources of talent, where people have potentially don't have a CS degree or a technical degree, but have gone through boot camp or learned on the job. I think, that's a really untapped source of talent for us just as leaders in this industry where we're always there's always a dearth of talent. And then I think the other thing you need to do is really be measuring. And so data goes a long way. What gets measured gets done in an organization. So good, bad, or ugly, and often our numbers aren't great, but it is important to look at, to track, to instrument your data collection so you understand what's going on in your organization. I've been at Toast relatively short tenure, a little bit longer than Lynn, but at my previous company, you know, we did a really deep dive in our data in terms of understanding both recruitment, retention, growth, and that really helped put us on the right path in terms of what actions we need to take. So those would be my 2 cents.
Please add.
Yeah, I was just going to add one. You can't start looking for diverse talent the day the job description opens. You need to be looking for it and sourcing diverse talent much earlier than that. So I think that's an important thing to think about, is having somebody in the organization that, whether it's their full job or their part-time job, it's that they're really actively building relationships ahead of jobs opening in order to, when they do open, have a pipeline of folks that you can bring into those roles. So that's one thing I've seen be effective. The other is, you know, for anyone here that's a people manager, it's making sure that you see this as your job, not HR's job or the talent team's job, but you see it as your job to figure out how to build out a diverse team, right? And diversity goes, you know, in a lot of directions. It's not just about gender, it's not just about race, but it's also about experiences and backgrounds and all these things, right? What's going to make your team be most effective? But I find first-line managers being absolutely critical to organizations starting to make change. And the change is slow, but you make it one hire at a time.
Thank you. Great addition. And then Lynn, you know, what steps can organizations take today and into the new year to help recruit more women and other diverse talent?
Yeah, so I echo what Anisha said on intentionality. Awareness, it really starts with, like Julie said, first-line managers. It doesn't happen overnight, but just having the conversation around what does diversity mean, right? Or did you take notice that the panel was all men? Or even as you're going through and doing promotions, is the team mostly men, right? So there's that awareness, just having that conversation. And if you look at a team, and you know, I'm in IT, and usually I'm joining teams or organization, and it's mostly men, which is okay. That's how it historically was. But if the awareness is there and they start to notice and start to take action upon it, they start to be, you know, just a little bit more, questioning themselves when they're hiring, et cetera. That's where the diversity starts. And then once you start to get people of different backgrounds, different experiences, different gender, then those people that go into those roles, they have some intentionality behind it too, right? It's just natural because, like me being a woman coming into a role, my network, I have a lot of people that are women within my network, and I'll start to think about them when it comes to, hey, we have a role open, or hey, a role on another team is open. We start to reach into our own networks that are a little bit more diverse. But how do you enter that in the first place? How do you, if you're the only person that's different in the room, how do you drive that change? Well, it starts with awareness for me. So just starting to have that conversation, planting the seed, and it doesn't happen overnight, but slowly you start to think about it a little bit more, something that may not be natural in terms of how you hire, even form a team. You start to think, hey, maybe I should approach this a little bit differently.
Thank you, Lynn. So let's switch the point of view over to job seeker instead of hiring manager. You know, women and other unrepresented groups, we deal with imposter syndrome, we deal with self-doubt, wondering about our qualifications. So Julie, how would you encourage these types of people to approach job hunting and the interview process?
Yeah, so I mean, I think first it's, you know, we all know the anecdote about how women are going to want to check every box before they even submit an application, whereas often men will say, hey, I don't have everything, but I'm going to go for it. So the first thing I encourage diverse candidates is go for it, right? I mean, the worst thing that happens is somebody comes back and says, hey, you're missing a few things. But I think if you really look at the role you're going after, also leverage people in your own network to understand more about the role and what's most important about that role. in general, right, in general terms, but do your homework about trying to zero in on the areas that are probably most important and really make sure that you feel that, hey, look, I've got a really good story or set of experiences, right, that really point in that direction. But I think the number one thing is go for it. The other is, network in the sense of, hey, it's surprising in tech how inevitably you know somebody that knows somebody that might work at that company, right? Like, so anything you can do to have somebody that might be sponsoring, not just going through the standard process of submitting your resume, but that you're also trying to get somebody else to maybe have a more personal, sort of submission on your behalf or whatever. But like, do the work, right, to try to make yourself stand out. And then the other thing I would say is as you prepare for the interview step, I think it's asking the questions about, like, being super prepared with a set of questions that show, even if you don't check every box on that resume, that you have the curiosity, the inclination, you've got examples of where you didn't know something, but you were able to show how you could quickly learn and develop those skills. So I think the number one thing is go for it.
Yeah, and I actually want to add to that because, I think that a lot of times people get discouraged when they see a job posting and they go, oh, I don't have experience in that specific technology or that specific language, but is your aptitude there? I've talked to many hiring managers and we constantly look for that aptitude. So please don't ever look at a job posting and think, I shouldn't apply for that. Go for it, like she said. It's definitely... If we see something in you as a hiring manager that you have potential, even if it's not experience there, we'll invest in you to get that training. We'll make sure that you get what you need. So don't be shy about applying for jobs that you think might be a little bit ambitious.
And then if I may add something to that, because I know that especially as women and then also men and our allies, please help with us too. Women are less inclined to, I feel, sometimes reach out into their network as they're looking for a job, and they're looking at a certain job description and they feel like, oh, I may not meet everything. Well, that's one, go for it. But secondly, we all know that it's a much better bet to even get a phone call back or a conversation if you go through your network. Your network doesn't necessarily just mean people you know directly. So with the advent of like LinkedIn and everything, or even your alumni network, if you don't completely know them, but you somehow have a connection, just reach out, because you'll be surprised by how many people will respond to you and be willing to help you. And I know I get a lot of inquiries like that too, and I love it because I'm all about empowering, making sure that, hey, whatever I can do to help or even provide some feedback, I'm willing to do it. And that's because I had a lot of people that did the same for me. But I'm pretty shy overall, and I remember being very shy about reaching out like that. But I say just go for it, right? Because more often than not, you'll be surprised that people are very receptive to replying to those inquiries.
Absolutely.
Just, Katie, one more thing to add. I would say, you've heard go for it. I would also encourage you to reframe that in your mind and think of it as just practice, as exercise, right? Like, interviewing is a skill. Like anything else, you have to work at it, and it doesn't if you don't, it's not something we all do frequently anyway. So reframe it as I'm getting better and I'm learning something through the process. And I can't tell you as a hiring manager, even if I decide not to hire somebody, if that positive interaction happened where I felt like not right for this role, but maybe in the future, and the person came across as super open to feedback and everything else, you remember that, and you might go back. And in the meanwhile, you're learning something, So as you go for it, you're getting better at interviewing, which isn't a bad thing at all.
Oh, I completely agree with that. I have to say, something I did before I got into management, I would actually talk to my manager if there was a opening that I knew I couldn't get. I would ask them if I could interview, because it was practice, and you get to get to the point where you understand the types of questions that those roles that you're aspiring to will be looking to ask. So I would do that, even though I knew I wouldn't get the role. It was just good practice. So I completely agree. And sticking with you, Anisha, what advice do you have for women who are looking for a new role or feel like they're not in the role that they're meant for? And is there anything they can do to stand out?
Yeah, I mean, I love the jungle gym versus career ladder analogy on this one, right? Like, don't feel like you're obligated. I mean, this is where I think you have the opportunity to expand your horizons. I would be thoughtful and be really do a self-reflection exercise on what about the current role you don't like. What are the attributes you're looking for? in a new role, right? And start to explore that with your network again, right? Like, these are the things I like to do, these are the things I don't like to do, as opposed to a job title or any of that. And that can help sort of broaden the horizon around looking at different roles that might fit the bill. And then tap into your network, tap into communities of interest, right? Like, there's so much more you learn from those informal conversations than any written formal sort of job description or anything else. But I would say, don't feel too caught up in job titles like, oh, I have this title, if I do this, it's a step down. It's a jungle gym. You move around, you learn, you experiment. And honestly, in my career, the breadth of experiences has served me really well. Like, that has actually prepared me for broader roles. And so it's not a bad thing to move laterally or take on a different role as long as you're learning. I mean, to this day, my criteria for considering a new role is, a big part of it is, what am I learning? Right? There's a big part of what am I bringing to the role, but it's also what am I going to learn in this role. And so, you know, if you're always, if you're thoughtful about what you want to accomplish next, what things get you excited and out of bed in the morning, and then think about what roles can fit the bill there.
So I would just kind of, there is so much available to us all now that wasn't available years ago, and I'm dating myself, but if you want to go learn about something now, you can go learn about anything. I mean, like, who doesn't go to YouTube every time I can't get the battery out of my car, you know,
Fixing the dryer,
and whatever, right? Like, but so it's like, hey, think about what you like and what you don't like, but also invest in yourself in terms of, you know, getting educated. You talked about, hey, I don't know that particular tool, right? Well, you can learn about just about anything now. So I also, you know, remind people to, you know, like, I spent a lot of time investing in my kids and investing in, you know, others. Well, it's like, invest in yourself once in a while, right? And carve the time out to, you know, learn about something that you want to learn about. And that might start to open your, you know, eyes to, hey, maybe security is a direction I want to go, or maybe there's some other part, you know, some other part of IT or technology that I'd like to, you know, sort of find my way. And that opens more doors for you as well on the jungle gym, right?
Absolutely. You both touched on networking quite a few times, and I have to stress just how important networking is. And it's a good example. We had a batch of interns at Forbes this summer, and halfway through their internship, I was asked to come to an intern session and just introduce myself and talk to everyone. And that was the first exposure I'd had to them. And everyone was silent, and I kept saying, "Do you want to ask me anything?" And no one would say anything. And finally I said, "Do you know, the best way to get hired is to network?" And then all of a sudden, everyone was speaking up. So, you know, it really does help. And honestly, from that batch of interns, the person that was the most outgoing with me is the first person I thought of when I was looking for junior people to hire next. So, you know, just definitely, if you're ever asked for those questions, you know, do you have questions? Come up with questions. You know, maybe you don't have one off the bat, but you're going to show them insight into how you think if you ask those questions. So it's a really important aspect. Okay, so we're going to switch over to retention now. So last year was fascinating as far as statistics. You know, we had the Great Resignation everyone heard about, of course, and I think maybe a lot of us probably were part of that. 53% of Americans quit last year for a career change. I thought that was a jarring statistic. But Lynn, how can companies work towards retaining employees, especially women? And underrepresented folks?
Sure. I'll speak as an employee overall, and then I can't hide the fact that I'm a woman and I'm also a mother, so then there are things that come along with that too. But speaking for Jamf, we have 2,500 employees globally, and our retention rate's about 90%, and we're actually very proud of that. I was hired in a year ago. I'm based out of San Jose, California. I work completely remotely, even though the company is based out of Minneapolis. And that was actually very attractive and important to me, especially with the pandemic as well, because my children, 9 and 8, at that time, they were just coming out of being schooled at home full time. I needed some of that flexibility with them. And what I love about Jamf, and then if you think about it like companies, if you want to attract talent, you need to think about the broad background of your workers and employees and what they may need, because work and life really is a blend. especially in our industry, especially within tech as well. So it can't be necessarily a one-size-fits-all. It can't be just a 9 to 5 and you expect them to be on the computer at all times. So you think about, well, you know, for women, especially during the pandemic, the caring for those at home or caring for, you know, those that may be elderly, children, whatever it is, more often than not, it fell on the shoulders of women, and they left the workforce. As they're coming back in, they may still need to require a little bit of that flexibility, and so we do provide some of that, where I'm very appreciative of it, and that makes us, I think, you know, gives us a little bit of a differentiator. But then also, the benefits and resources that come along with it in terms of things that we provide for dependent care, et cetera. You need to think about those things too, because as employees, as people that are seeking jobs, now with all the geographical barriers really lifted from things and we have so many options, we can shop around quite a bit, right? We can see, like, what does that company offer us? And it's not just salary anymore, it's the whole package. How much flexibility is there? What type of benefits are there? Does it fit my lifestyle? So that's really important when it comes to retention. And I know that a lot of services that are provided also goes back to employee resource groups as well. And I would love for you to speak to that a little bit too, if you can.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. Hey. As far as Jamf, you know, I can really speak to a personal experience of being a part of the group who started the Women at Jamf Employee Resource Group. Yeah, hey, some of you are out there. Shout out to Carly Workus, because I have to, the OG president of Women at Jamf. I guess when I'm hearing all of this great advice for women and advice about how to, you know, work yourself up, invest in yourself, do extra learning, do extra networking. I agree with all of that. I think the flip side of that is, are you creating those opportunities in your culture? Are you creating soft places for that to land? So that's where ERGs, I think, have really made some strides, particularly at Jamf. And that's that creation of safe spaces for dialogue, for the ability to chat with folks who might be going through the same thing that you are, to have people that you look up to that are in different departments that you do naturally network with because you're working to plan an event, or you're working to fundraise, or you're working to sell t-shirts, or whatever you're up to with the ERG. So, excuse me, I think that when we talk about retention, or we talk about this entire package, really has a lot to do with how we can make folks feel like individuals at work. And it's not that you don't want to be a part of a group, but what makes you an individual, and are you able to be a part of that at work? Are you able to bring that to work? And I think, excuse me, we talk a lot about bring your whole self to work, and that can get tricky. And I think the ERG is a great space for that to actually be true, where you can have that space where there is that understanding and there's a baseline. And we've seen some really great involvement from our leadership in the past year. So really excited to see what that does. But I would say to folks out there who are thinking about ERGs or in smaller orgs and just want to make sure you have those spaces, find me on the Midway and we can talk all about it. Yeah.
Just a couple of points to add on culture. I think culture plays a huge part in retention, of course. And it's not the fun perks, yeah, they're nice, whatever, ping pong tables, beer after 3, all that fun stuff. But it's really like things that make our lives easier, right? And I can speak for Toast, for example. You know, we have a parental leave policy that is equally applied to our birthing parents and non-birthing parents. So, and we've made it okay for the non-birthing parent to take 16 weeks off to take care of their newborn. So it's also about building allyship, right? And saying, I have 2 male VPs that report to me that are on 4 months of parental leave right now. My life is complicated as a result, but I am glad that we're doing this and we're normalizing it, right? So that, I think that creating that culture of providing really robust mental health services, and, you know, all these things that really help cope with work and life that all comes together, I think is super important.
So I'm going to have a slightly different view on, there is no perfect balance. There is no, flexibility is great, but there's still work that needs to get done, right? So I do think it's important that as leaders, you're really understanding what motivates and drives your employees, to understand what you're going to need to do to retain them, because everybody's going to be a little different. I think I haven't actually heard the specific word inclusion, right? So I heard safe space, but I do think there is an element of, hey, it's not just that I see there's a lot of diversity, but I myself feel like it's an inclusive environment and that I'm included in conversations. I am included, my ideas and input is included, whether it necessarily wins the day or not is separate from whether you were heard, and it was, there was some recognition and understanding that it was an important perspective to be considered. But I do think, we talk about, yes, women were hit hard during the pandemic, and I think some are slow to come back because they've got a different life now and a different perspective on things. But I do think it's important that, look, there are, like when we work in these types of roles, right, there's expectations of being in the role. And so you need to make sure that you're in the right communications happening between you and your leadership to make sure that if you are feeling, hey, I'm overwhelmed or the pressure's on me or those types of things, that there's a conversation about what can be done as opposed to an expectation that there's always going to be this perfect balance, because it just doesn't exist in the real world.
And if we're talking about culture, and I think you said something important with the word recognition, when we're talking about making things, or retention and making things as comfortable and happy as possible for your employees, or if you are an employee, individual contributor, I think the most important thing is just those little moments of giving a shout out, giving kudos, saying, you did a great job, because so many times we have to have conversations that are negative, that you did something wrong, you did something that messed up production or whatever it might be. But I think the important part is when good things are done, you voice those, and also publicly. I think that keeps people really, really happy, at least most. So Lynn, I'd like to shift back over to you on this topic. How have you seen asynchronous work with the changes that have happened in the world recently? But asynchronous work, corresponding tools, how are we meeting those needs now? And how do we continue shifting to progress with society?
Yeah. So a couple of things there. I think more traditional type work is pretty much gone. And I think we can see companies that were pretty aggressive coming out to say, hey, everyone come back in, we want the norm back. They're backpedaling a little bit, right? It didn't go as well. Being in IT, it's all about enabling our employees so that we can better serve our customers and partners. And now employees are everywhere. I don't have 12 offices anymore. I have upwards of close to 2,500 offices that I need to worry about now. How can we make sure that everyone has the right tools, the right resources to be productive, right? And by productive, it's tools at their disposal when they need it, access to things when they need it, but in a very secure manner as well, because you can imagine 2,500 offices, security is also top of mind. So it's a balance of making sure that the things that you are looking to deploy now, you can't think about it anymore in a traditional sense. It's, can it scale? Is it going to meet the needs of a workforce that is very, very widely dispersed now? So that for me is, especially in IT, is top of mind for me every day.
Thank you. So Julie, let's go back to you. The question here is, what does it look like to cultivate safe spaces within organizations for folks from historically marginalized genders?
So, I think it goes back to what Amy was talking about. It's helping people find, right, their community within the organization, I think is very important. But it's, even if an organization doesn't have a resource group for, every group that would like to be represented, it's just people's actions, right, as leaders, but even just as an employee, is being thoughtful about. I ran people for a few years when I was at Four Scout, and you would have people that would come and talk about not feeling included, and it was simple things like, hey, every time that group goes to lunch, They never just say, hey, why don't you come to lunch with me, right? So it's thinking, first of all, it's understanding kind of where your employees are feeling in terms of feeling that they're included and they've got their safe spaces and places to engage. It's understanding that baseline, but then it's going beyond that and taking action, particularly as leaders, right? So you spending time, and now it's not about going to the cafeteria anymore, right? Because those days are sort of gone, but it's, hey, intentionally spending time with people you don't get to spend time with people even if it's virtual, or if on the occasion where people are together in some sort of, whether it's a meeting that's being pulled together or whatever, but it's using that time very intentionally to make sure that you don't just gravitate towards the people you spend most of time with, but the people that you don't. So, again, I think that people will not bring this up unless they feel that their leaders and their peers are open to these types of things. So it's everybody's got to take action and show that they're open to these things.
Anisha, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I would just concur and echo that, right? I think how you handle a situation, reverberates to the organization, right? And so be mindful of that. Are you in every interaction creating a safe space to ask the difficult question? And people notice on what happens next, right? So be very intentional about that. And completely agree with what Julie said in terms of, especially in a hybrid remote world, be intentional about including people that you don't naturally interact with. I think a lot about this because, similar to what Lynn said, I have people everywhere, every time zone, and I have to think very intentionally about, how do we make that environment inclusive when you don't have those casual opportunities to interact and have conversations. So.
Yeah, just to tag on there, I can think of a really specific situation where, in getting to know a colleague of mine, he just chatted about ERG stuff, but he chatted about he was Latino and really talked a lot about his culture and the way that he brought his culture to work. And I would say maybe 3 or 4 Zoom meetings in, I felt safe, right? He helped me feel like a friend and feel like someone I could talk to. And I said, will you do me a favor? And he was like, yeah, sure, what in the world? I said, the next time you're in a meeting and it's all dudes, just invite a woman next time. Just next time you have this recurring meeting, bring someone who is involved in this but isn't in this meeting. At the time, I was focused on managed service providers, so we have all these different groups that touch this thing, right, in this type of partnership. And so even bringing in customer success ones, right, who are focused on these managed service providers, they don't have the opportunity to sit in strategic meetings. So I think folks who, like us here, right, sitting in meetings a lot of us do a lot of meeting work. So bringing folks in and just looking around and noticing, right? So again, it comes back to that word intention that we keep on hearing, but look around and care enough to think, is this the right representation at this table? Is everybody that needs to be here?
Yeah, and most people may not be aware of it. We're just trying to get through our days most days, right? Just focused on getting things done. But again, the awareness of it, talking about it, you all being here, hearing about it, I hope that next time you have a meeting or going through something, you'll think twice and go, hey, is this inclusive, or do we need more representation? Create that safe culture and safe space, because more likely than not, there is someone thinking, hey, I'm not feeling included, or it's not safe enough for me to say something. So, speak up.
You just reminded me of something, and this is, if I go back to beginning of my career, well, actually not even the beginning, many years into my career, the idea of having a women in tech or a women's forum, they didn't exist, right?
Neither did the women.
Well, I was a woman, so there was one. There was at least one.
Just saying, and we were probably the only ones at that point.
Well, no, but I was surprised. It took a while, right? And again, I was not, because it didn't exist, I didn't realize it was missing, right? It wasn't until I joined a larger organization and they were just starting it themselves, right? But what I realized is, in hindsight, I did not speak up enough when I was in situations where I could have advocated or supported somebody when I didn't. You would notice, wow, that she just kind of got cut off, or that person didn't really get to finish their thought. But, I wasn't thinking like, oh my God, I got to jump in there and I got to say, wait a second, let them finish, right? But now you realize how important those actions are, right? And so as, my career progressed and things have changed a lot, even though I agree there's a long way to go, things are better than they were in terms of at least recognition of the situation. Now I wouldn't think twice about saying, you know what? They just said that exact same thing. Why are we suddenly now latching on to that this other person has said it, right? So I do think that all these little actions go a long way. And I even myself realized, gosh, I could have been doing more. But it just wasn't the focus at the time. But now in hindsight, I realize that I should have spoke up more. And I think that brings me to, you talked about recognition, and we sort of moved from that. I think that's the other thing, is recognition. It's the action of recognition, and it can be something very simple, just a thank you. And it doesn't have to always come from the top down, right? It happens amongst each other as peers, right? That almost is more meaningful a lot of times. So, just creating and making it safe for people to constantly be saying, wow, great job on that, right? And creating that it doesn't matter upwards, downwards, sideways, that you recognize the little things.
Absolutely. And, now we're getting into the last topic of recognition. We touched on it a little bit before, but I think you bring up a great point, is just what are some of those specific ways that you recommend? So, Anisha, I'd like to ask you, in your organization, what are some of those ways that you recognize, reward talent, programs, benefits? I mean, what's your approach?
Yeah, I mean, we have a great little program for peer recognition called Bonus Leads. I don't know. Some people may be familiar with it, but every employee gets 50 bonus leads a month, and you can give them out to anyone in the organization as a thank you. And then they're redeemable for like gift cards and other things, or you can even donate them to charity depending on your. So that's like one at scale, we're 4,500 employees globally, and it's actively used. You see them in Slack channels, have Bonusly Slack channel, people going out and acknowledging big things and small things, and it really fosters collaboration, right? And again, the whole intentionality thing, recognizing efforts that are like the big project stuff, and I'm sure this audience will relate to all the keep the lights on things that we do every single day that often don't get the recognition. So being super intentional about recognizing both efforts, right? I have a quarterly employee recognition program that we've implemented. It's just fun. It's we give out custom Nike shoes. They went over really well. So that kind of fun stuff, right? But being very intentional about recognizing both the big heroic project efforts and the folks that keep things going every single day. So.
And Lynn, what about you? Are there some specific ways that you make sure you do recognition and reward?
So I feel like it's different for every organization. And why I say that is people feel differently about how they're recognized. Some people like things that are very big and public, and some people like more of a low-key pat on the back. And we're working within our team to kind of figure that out right now to see, and the responses have been across the board, very, very different and diverse. So we're trying to figure out the best way for recognition. But until then, some of the things that we have been doing is that our quarterly all hands really highlighting, larger projects or impactful projects. So they may not always be the largest ones, and recognizing people that worked on it. On the really large ones, make sure that there's recognition from the top down, just to say, hey, thank you, we recognize what you've done. But then we're also encouraging that peer recognition as well. So at Jamf, my team goes from IT to facilities to security to enterprise applications as well. And traditionally, these groups may not have seen the connections among all of them, but as we brought it together, they're really seeing, hey, our stuff is really interdependent. And what we've seen now is some recognition, across the teams to say, hey, thanks for helping me with that. Or, hey, you did a great job there and made our lives a lot easier. So that peer recognition, I feel, has gone a long way as well.
Absolutely, and I'm sorry. Let me just to add something. I did want to touch on what you said about some people like different types of recognition, because earlier I said publicly, and I wanted to add to that, because what I do in advance is I do check in with the person and ask them if they're okay with it. That's something I normally do, so I wanted to add that caveat
The
before.
last thing you want to do is make people
Right.
uncomfortable because you think that loud recognition is great, but they actually feel like, no, I don't like that. So just trying to be mindful of that too. And I really didn't think about that, again, going back to, inclusion and diversity in thought until at my last job, someone that worked on my team brought it up to me and said, Lynn, when you do that, it actually makes me feel really uncomfortable. It didn't even cross my mind, right? So now it's just something that I try to be aware of as well.
Totally. Different personality types prefer different ways to go about it. But that's definitely one method is, checking in with someone just to ask their individual preference. It's about individuality, just like you said.
Right. I would just tag on to that and say that in the same mode of recognition, but maybe on the other side of the coin, something that we really looked at for women at Jamf, not just the ERG, but people that are women at Jamf, was the ability to be more recognized for the work that you're doing, and then what? Right? So then what happens? If you're great at your job and someone says, kudos, that's awesome. I like that. Like, I like if someone's like, way to go, Amy. I'm like, yeah, let's high five, maybe do a little victory dance. Not everybody likes that. But does that mean I'm going somewhere different? Does that mean that my career is going to be affected by that? Or is it just a gift card? So of course, I know that that's not that way at Toast, but there is that element where you have to make sure that there is some real meat to it as well. And I think that one of the main ways that we've been able to do that is through our mentorship program and really matching up folks who have information that they want to share and knowledge that they want to share with people who are eager to learn that. And so that's where we've seen kind of, again, the other side of recognition. We're seeing more people being recognized for the work that they're doing because there's a lot more cross-functional conversations and a lot more kind of uplifting and teaching going on, almost more like a living classroom and less like a siloed Zoom-based organization, right?
Thanks, Amy.
Can I just,
Go ahead.
excuse me, the other side of recognition is the person not getting recognized. So I know I found when I would implement similar programs to what you guys have discussed, that there's often always somebody that's like, you know what, I never get that, or whatever. So I think, again, as leaders, right, and particularly in technical organizations, there can never be too much recognition. It doesn't have to be the one award of the quarter or the whatever. It's go crazy with recognition, right? Because it is often a thankless job. And, like I said, I found like you can put in some amazing programs, but there's always somebody's like, nobody knew that I did X, Y, Z. So it's, again, being really conscious of that, because that goes to retention, it goes to inclusion, it goes to, do they really know what I do every day? And so I would just never shortchange recognition myself. And to your point about, well, where is this taking me? I think that's a little bit more about career development, performance management, and helping to coach people as to what's what's next for them. But I go crazy on recognition.
Definitely. And I think we have about a minute left. So, Lynn, I wanted to wrap up with you and just ask if there's any final words of advice for the audience.
My gosh, really? Okay.
Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah. I would say give yourselves more credit than you think you deserve. Like, one, being most of the people out here in IT and security, it is often a thankless job. And I don't think that a lot of people in an organization realize that we're really the backbone of the company, because if things aren't running, if productivity tools aren't up and running, and if security is not tight, the whole thing falls apart, right? So it's a thankless job. And then as women, as you're looking at your own careers, as you're having conversations with your managers, your peers, if you're looking to learn something new or even like look for a new career opportunity, don't think about the things that you already know. Think about things you want to learn. Look at that next opportunity as exactly that, an opportunity. And don't be afraid to raise your hand and say, hey, I can do it, or go for it. Reach out to your network, even if it's a couple of degrees removed. Don't be shy about it, because I will tell you that there are always people who have been in your shoes as well that want to help, and they may not always know how to help, but also be an advocate for yourself. Don't be shy, reach out, and you'll be very, very surprised what can come out of it if you believe in that and you bet on yourself and don't put yourself in a box and just check some things off and say, you know, I don't fully meet all those requirements.
You'd never know I put you on the spot for that one. All right, with that, I'd like to conclude everything and just say, first of all, if you missed any part of this and you want to see the replay, it'll be out on the 29th of September, as I said. Thank you so much to all these fantastic women. I'm just honored to be sitting up here with all of you. And thank you to everyone who attended and listened, and thank you to Gray, our ASL interpreter, and have a fantastic rest of the JNUC 2022 conference.
Thanks, everyone.